All right. Hello and welcome to this episode of When the Heart Leads. I'm your host, Dr. Catherine Hall, also published as Dr. Catherine Hall Newberg, founder of Books of Eden Publishing, and ecstatic as always to be connecting with you today. I have a quick announcement before we dive in, and this does have to do with joy. So this October 9th through 12th, I am co-leading a retreat with the founder of Buka Yoga, Brooke Page, and the co-founder of Laughing Moon, Hannah White. And this retreat is in Steamboat Springs, Colorado, and it's all about creating joy. So Brooke is a really talented she leads yoga nidra and meditation and different kinds of yoga. And Hannah is an herbalist. And so she's got this really powerful healing ability with herbs and nature and plants. Then I will be leading workshops on writing with your authentic voice and also expanding on some of these principles of creating joy. So if you are interested, I'll put a link underneath this video, but there's still a few spots left for this retreat in October, and it's going to be one of those really deeply rejuvenating um, times of coming together and nourishment and community and nature. And Steamboat Springs, if you don't know, it's in northern Colorado, and in October, it's going to be stunning. It's going to be one of those, like, you will be surrounded by the fire of autumn. And I am so excited for it. And I would love for you to join if this is calling to you. So, yeah, feel free to reach out if you have questions. Or I'll make sure I have a link underneath this video if you want to learn more or sign up if this is calling to you. So, I just wanted to make sure I didn't bury that lead with all of this talk of joy that's going on. And then, as always, if you are enjoying the content that I'm creating, I have a weekly Substack, Aniata Speaks, which brings forward kind of deep wisdom of the moment, taps into some of the questions that I sit with, and then Aniata is this kind of oracular ascended presence that works with me and offers messages. That my feedback on that has been that it's been a deep place of kind of nourishment where when you listen or when you read, it allows for perspectives beyond what the day-to-day offers. And I am certainly often surprised by what Aniata has to say every week. So it's as exciting for me as it is for my readers. And then as well, I am releasing the serial of Aniata Speaks, A Tale of Creation is Told by the Fae, which is my most recent book. So that is being released as a serial on my Substack for paying subscribers as a huge thank you. You kind of get to travel along the first readings of the book, and we're getting into the part of the book where there's a lot of light language. The old tongue of the Fae is coming through, and I know people have really been enjoying that. So if this is calling to you, please do subscribe to my Substack and receive these weekly jewels of wisdom, which again are as much as powerful for me when they come through as they are, I think, for anyone. So, all right. Great. Thank you for riding along with me on those messages. And then let's dive in now. The moment we've been waiting for, the fourth principle of joy. And this is one I have alluded to a few times. So this one perhaps won't come as a surprise, but we can deepen some of the teachings around it. So I can read to you the misconception that this principle addresses is joy is the same as happiness. And we're going to go into the awakened principle, but I want to be really clear that this is more than just semantics. This is more than splitting hairs. And I know I'm a writer and I was an English major. And so, like, precision in language is really important to me, but this goes beyond that. This has more to do with the deeper kind of holistic feeling of joy overall. So joy is not the same as happiness. So what is the awakened principle that comes forward from that? The awakened principle number 4 for joy is not just one feeling. It shares a frequency with gratitude, peace, wonder, abundance, contentment, compassion. And all of these are access points to one another. And so something else I mentioned is like an analogy: happiness is to joy as affection is to love. There's a real, if you think about the difference between affection and love, right? There's a really big difference there. And it's the same thing when we think about happiness versus joy. Happiness might be a feeling state you have, but it's often one of those, when we think about happiness, it can be fleeting. It can be one of those things that comes in and goes out, and we enjoy it when it comes, right? Joy is an enduring quality. And again, it's one that we can commit to. It's a quality, it's a way of being that's essential. And it shares this frequency band with these other really powerful states of being. So in my first book, The New Eden Paradise Retold, which I have received feedback that it can be, that one can be, I have to create lots of different access points for that one because, as a read, it can often be kind of opaque to people, which I totally understand. But one of the things I'd like to lift up from that book is that the second half of the book is a series of shamanic journeys that allow the reader to embody what I call the frequencies of the new earth, or the frequencies of the new Eden. And the fact is there's many, many, many of these, right? I happen to highlight 7 of them, and they were states of being that included, purpose and devotion. And one of them was emptiness, which is a really powerful one to consider. And anyway, so these are all frequency bands that allow us to enter these expanded states of these expanded perspectives of consciousness. And one of the things that these practices around joy really allow for is, let me just make sure that I'm not, okay, yeah, I wanted to make sure I wasn't going to go into the 5th principle, which will be the final principle of joy that we cover. But one of the things that can feel really difficult is when we feel like we have an access point to this state, say, of joy or of peace or of contentment or of gratitude, and then it's gone. It comes and it goes, and it feels like, and this is something I think we talked about before, like these outside circumstances are, we're completely at the mercy of outside circumstances or the whims of a capricious God in order to feel things like joy or gratitude. And what I want to offer with this expanded frequency band, right, that joy shares a frequency with these other states of consciousness: contentment, peace, gratitude, abundance, is that they offer these access points to one another. So if you're, as another kind of example, if you're someone who, like me, and in fact I have the book right here, if you like the gene keys, like I followed the gene keys for many years, and one of the teachings of the gene keys that I really enjoy, and if you haven't listened to the gene keys, this is just an example that I think you can follow, even if you haven't read it. But he offers this idea of these 3 different, Richard Rudd, who created the gene keys, offers this idea of these 3 different frequency bands: the shadow, the gift, and the siddhi. And what he talks about is when you enter this gift state and the siddhic state, all of those states of being are kind of on the same frequency band. So you can kind of shift between them, and they just kind of take on different flavors or different hues, or different nuances, but it's really the same state of consciousness within each one. So I want to say this about joy is, when I'm talking about joy, right, and I'm talking about the frequency band of joy, that state of consciousness you enter when you're in the state of joy, right, which is different from happiness, right? You've entered into a place where there's portals to all these other states: contentment, gratitude, abundance, peace, generosity. And so the way I think of that often is in creating access points. And I've mentioned this before because I've brought this principle up a few times. It's a really key principle, I think, because maybe in a moment the heightened state of enduring joy is beyond me. And maybe it is because of circumstances, right? But what is something I can tap into that's in that same frequency band? And maybe I can find something to be grateful for, right? And then that's an entryway into this frequency band where then I can shift more easily from there into something like joy. Maybe I am in a fear state or a scarcity state and I can't quite access abundance, right? But I can find something in my life to feel content with. And can you feel, I love that feeling of contentment. It's kind of that, it feels like that deep, peaceful coming to rest, like enoughness, right? All of that. And then from there, I can begin to open into this state of abundance, right? So it can be an entryway. So these all work together really beautifully on this frequency band. So, and I know I'm not covering all of them. I know there's many, many more. And if there's ones that I haven't mentioned, like the ones that are top of mind for me, that are that can be these enduring states, generosity, gratitude, peace, contentment, abundance, joy, right? And then if all of these are, if you apply the principles to all of these, then you know that these are also essential, right? And that these are also a practice, a commitment to come back to over and over again. But I do want to draw that distinction between you might not be feeling happy in the moment. And I think each one of these has a feeling state associated. Like these are what I feel like these are conscious states of consciousness, states of being that can have a feeling state that's associated with it, but they're not the same thing. So in the same way that, like I said, affection is to love, is the same way that happiness is to joy, right? There's a surface level kind of, you see the waves at the surface and you can enjoy them, but there's a much deeper aspect of those feeling states then that's the commitment, that's the practice, that's the feeling state, the embodiment that we're really going for here. So if you've been listening to this series on joy and you think, well, I can't always access joy, right? Maybe there's another one of those states of consciousness that's more available to you in the moment, right? And maybe it's just moving from anxiety to a breath of peace and practicing that. And then from that state of peace, it's like you've stepped into a whole new kind of a whole new vantage point where you can see new perspectives, you can see pathways to things like joy, generosity, gratitude, right? In an easier way. So these are all just ways of saying there's a lot of fluidity here, and there's a lot of playfulness, and there's a lot of movement with these states of being that allow for you to find them even in the midst of things that feel difficult. So so that this is a teaching I've alluded to a few times in the series, and that's the nice thing about these principles, is you'll see is that and you probably have seen already, is that they're not discrete, distinct principles. They're all very interrelated, and they're all different ways of talking about accessing what ultimately is this this state of consciousness, this state of embodiment that is available to us, especially the more we commit and practice. So yeah, so maybe you're not feeling very joyful right now, but maybe there's something, when you take a deep breath, you can feel contentment about something, or you can feel abundant. This is that time of harvest. I just harvested with my partner. The apple trees are dropping apples everywhere, and he has this beautiful orchard. So we harvested all these apples, and then took time yesterday to core the apples and peel the apples. And I have so much applesauce, it's almost overwhelming. And when I think about that harvest, right, I can feel like, oh, this feels abundant. This feels incredibly abundant. And so I can access that, and then from there, maybe it's not that far of a step into something like joy or gratitude, right? So this is just some food for thought for you this week. So thank you so much for joining me this week in our fourth principle of joy. Please let me know if you have any questions, and again, if you have any interest in either the Substack subscription or the retreat that's coming up in October in Steamboat Springs, please do reach out. I'm happy to answer any questions or have a chat with you about what all this is. So again, so much gratitude to you for joining me today and for taking a trip along these principles of joy in this second season of When the Heart Leads. So sending lots and lots of beautiful harvest, enjoyment, and light for you until we connect again.